Rosie Hardy Gardening. Everybody has asked me from the last video regarding all of my ideas about how I enjoy gardening and enjoy plants. How did this all happen? Where did it all start from? So this is just a little basic history behind where I got my love of plants. And it all goes back to being a child, being a really nosy little child who used to ride ponies and horses around in Northumberland, which is a very beautiful county in the north of England. And I would be really, really great because you can look over people's hedges, you can look over fences, and you can just see all these wonderful plants growing in those situations. And I would sort of go home and I'd go, well, Mum, what's that one? And what's this one? And I'll tell you what, it's also one of the best ways of scrumping apples or plums. But that's beside this point. I loved that. And when I was out and riding around the countryside, I knew all the trees, I knew all of the hedgerow plants, I knew all of the wildflowers that were growing out on the moors or in the woodland, and that is what gave me a real love for plants. And then, you know, that stemmed into, what do I want to do when I grow up? What do I want to do as a living? And it was one of those really, really difficult situations because there wasn't very many places that you could go, but I had a very, very good person at school who actually was a careers advisor who said to me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to work outside. In the time when I was going to go on to college, it was the late 70s, early 80s, and women were still supposed to go and be secretaries or go be a banking clerk or that sort of thing. They weren't supposed to go and dig up stuff and work in the land, etc. So I was bucking the trend a little bit. I ended up going to Writtle Agricultural College and doing commercial horticulture, which was brilliant. I had to do a year out in the industry before I went off to do my degree, and that was something which I really enjoyed because I ended up in field-grown vegetables, and that's where my love of different plants and how they all grow. But once you realise that the soil sciences for growing plant material and what they require in their roots and everything else, then everything else follows on, and a lot of it is observation. I have to say that as you get older, once you get past a certain age, you suddenly realise your observation is not as good, and you have to stop and you have to look and really make yourself look at stuff. When you're younger, you see it, you remember it, and you're interested and you go and look. And somewhere along the line in growing plants on the nursery, although I'm observing everything that we grow on the nursery and I love it and I love seeing new plants, you suddenly realise you've missed the observation outside. And it's been wonderful over the last couple of years that I've actually had time, because we haven't been able to go out to shows so much. I've had time to go and wander in the woodlands near here, and I found all the wild orchids, and it's just wonderful, and you can lose yourself for hours just looking down at the plant material. I've got friends who are tree people, and I always say they're all the ones who are looking up into the stars and looking at the trees, whereas I'm just looking at the ground and looking at all the herbaceous plants that are growing there. But that's the thing, it's all about observation. It's looking at this plant material, this wonderful flora that we have. And if we have all of this flora, then we're going to encourage all of the wildlife, we're going to encourage the insects and everything else coming in. So my love of plants stemmed from that child looking at the wildflowers, and then now growing all of the herbaceous plants that we do grow. It's just seeing how they differ, working out where they will go best, what will happen to them if I try and push them just a little bit further than where they're supposed to go in the garden. And this is all great fun, and it's a matter of experimenting and not being afraid of plants. And a plant is a very tough being. It will tolerate a lot of different conditions, and that's what I enjoy. It's the fact that I know that I can explain to people, if you put that plant in, you nurture it for the first few months of its growing, it will then grow in a lot of different conditions from what you thought it would. And there are so many colours, there are so many shapes. You've got spiky flowers, you've got round flowers, you've got spiky leaves, you've got round leaves, all of this contrast, and it's everything about a plant. It's not just the flowers, it's about the base of the plant, it's where the roots grow. Everything that happens to a plant, from when it dies back down to that wonderful moment in the spring or later summer when it suddenly pops up again and starts growing and you see the different greens, that is what is really enjoyable about growing plants and enjoying plants. Thank you very much for listening, and please do subscribe to the channel.